I knew I was forgetting something.
Becky, are you muted?
You want me to unmute her?
She was just saying.
Oh,
yes
she was just
to-
saying that we could hear you. Is there anybody else who's got public comments?
How many people do you have on there?
We have,
16, but
Yeah.
a lot of them are us.
yeah, how many of them are not us? 8. Yeah.
7,
Say like,
8.
call it 8.
Plus Mickey is on remotely and Phil Barta is on remotely.
Mhm.
All right. So hearing no public, is there any comment from the LEA or staff? Hearing none, I guess we'll start with reports. So the first thing is board chair. I wanted to address the board because I wanted to remind everybody, we've switched over to our school board emails on the school server. However, I still would like to remind everybody to not do quorum emails. We've had, so that we are sticking with the rules, the law, we gotta be very careful about that. Another thing I'd like to announce is that we are going to be introducing manifest signing at our subsequent meetings. It won't be every meeting, but we're gonna work out with Janet so that when we do meet for a general school board meeting, we will sign the most recent manifest. So that way we can ask questions and have everybody in the know about questions that arise out of that.
So can I just ask a question
Yeah.
of, because we used to do it that way,
Mhm.
and that was a problem.
Okay,
Because whoever was signing the manifest could not pay attention to the meeting. And the manifests are pretty thick,
Mhm.
and that, whoever was going through the checks, and so it was kind of actually a complaint. And that's why we went to the other strategy. So
Okay.
I just didn't know where it came from and what the thought process was behind it. But it's not a problem, I can bring them, it's not a big deal.
May I
So-
suggest that I agree with Janet about wanting to look through it carefully
right.
and needing some quiet to do that? Can we have whoever comes a little early,
Yeah.
look through the manifest and have those available and maybe encourage people to look at them prior to
Absolutely.
the meeting starting?
Yep.
I mean, I know that may be a big ask, but
Well, so
That would be easier
could
than
set the
having to go at like random times during.
Maybe you could set the time
I
of,
would cause
manifest
more
review
meetings.
for 6:30,
yeah,
or anytime prior to the 7 o'clock meeting,
that makes sense.
or give half an hour beforehand.
And I'm coming in early to get set up, so if somebody needs to get in and they can't get in, you can knock the window and I'll just come let you in.
Okay.
So,
Yep, so we'll figure out the timing, but we'll have the manifest signing and question will be, that way if you have questions, everybody knows the questions that are being asked. And we'll figure out the details afterwards.
So can I ask another question?
Yeah,
So not all the manifests, so we are holding a
Correct.
manifest.
no, you are not
Okay.
holding manifest. It'll probably be every other manifest, but at least that way, some of the questions will be brought to the entire board, so everybody is aware of what concerns might be arising.
Okay,
It saves
Thanks.
people a trip too. It saves different people a trip.
Just save people a
Look at
trip
it all
for
at
sure.
once.
All right, next is superintendent's report.
Okay, I am going to cover the topics of, let me look. I am in a little bit different order, but when we get to the discussion part, I am gonna provide you some informal feedback that I received working with the professional staff today on district structure. And just wanted to touch on this piece of the process for filling administrative positions that I know there's a lot of pressure to come up with a decision. But it's not really unrealistic. Initially, we said aim for by Christmas. And of course, now we're just about there. It's not unrealistic for you to make a decision at the January 11th meeting. It buys you a little bit more think time, a little bit more conversation getting. I've just spoken to the director of facilities to get feedback from custodians. Elise put out a communication to others, non-union staff, so that they had a window of opportunity to be able to voice their opinions or, information. So it gives, a little bit more time to collect a whole body of information for anybody who wants to provide it. But really, Christmas was a good deadline because it forces us to move forward. But by January 11th, you really want to make that decision, because then the next step would be that we would, if it's not a job description that already exists, then that has to be created and approved. If it's a job description that already exists, then that position can be put out and posted for a good amount of time. And then at the same time, I would establish a search committee to vet those applications. So the timing is still good, because you really want to be looking, I would guess by early April, you'd want to have close to a decision made on the candidate. Okay, so just feedback on that. And then in discussion at the 5-year technology plan discussion, so I will get into more detail about that. I have absolutely had a different perception, and so I want to explain that, because I'm not presenting you a draft policy plan tonight for approval. I misunderstood the whole process of what was being requested, and I'd like to explain that when we get into the discussion.
All right, thank you. Principal's report?
I don't have one tonight.
Excellent. Katie, do you have a COVID report? I saw you on there.
Yep. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I'll give a quick COVID report. New Hampshire obviously is continuing to be at a substantial level of transmission throughout our state, having the highest number of COVID cases. So our school is chugging along and committed to the best practices for keeping our school community safe. We still have no evidence of in-school transmission, which is great news. And we began our weekly screening testing on December 2nd. We had 81 individuals participating. This is the PCR test, and results were available within about 30 hours post-test, which was a good time frame considering. We had no positive tests during last week. We will do it again on Thursday, and students and staff can opt in anytime. They just need to fill out the consent form. And then finally, I've received several boxes of antigen tests from the DHHS for our school, which went along with our certification, CLIA certification, and that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Faculty and staff report. If there's any faculty that's representing the staff.
I saw Tom's phone sign in just now. Is that Tom Harkins? Would that be faculty staff?
That is me, but we do not have anything to report tonight. Thank you for the
Oh,
opportunity.
good job, Tom. I just unmuted to say it was me. I was just late. Sorry.
All right. Financial report?
Wow, that was fast.
Yeah.
Just whipped right through that whole thing. So I dropped a bunch of documents in today because there were emails requesting information, and then I wasn't sure what I was supposed to bring to this or what was supposed to come to the finance committee meeting on Thursday. But so for my regular financial reports, there was the teacher stipend report. So this data is good as of November 26th. And so far, year to date, we have 119 hours of the stipends, and the total cost so far is $5,559.61. And then I go to the revenue report. So our current revenues, we just put in our first claim for food service for the month of September. So I'll just tell you that the reimbursement from the state should be approximately $11,000 for just the month of September.
Is this the expenditure report you're talking about?
We're talking about the revenue report.
Sorry, revenue report.
Yep. So it isn't on here, but I just wanted you to know that we should have an approximately $11,000, $10,000 each month, which will help defray the cost of the contractor. And that's due to the SSO program with the free meals for everyone. So On the report that I'm presenting tonight is the current appropriations year to date and receivables from the state. The food service is of course skewed because it doesn't have that revenue in there. And the special revenue funds is, we haven't received all of these funds, just received to date is in the second column of $445.94. So the claims have not been going in, and we met for grants the other day, Corinne and Mickey and I, and strategized on what expenditures would be going to the grants so that she could write them. And so this should be mitigated. In the third column, the projection really is just to match what our expenditures are on the expenditure side. Just to give us a better picture or a better idea of what's going on. So far, we have unanticipated revenue of $76,707 and change. Excuse me. Does anybody have any questions on the revenue report? And so I did send the ADS report. If you needed to have any questions on the actuals on the expenditure side. But on my report where I use the encumbrance tool, our high school number has gone up. So we currently have a deficit in high school of 44,434. We have another student that will be entering the high school system, so that number will increase and we'll have a greater deficit in that line. So I'm not sure when that we will get that bill. It may not be till January, but excuse me again. High school special ed is also in a deficit situation, and that's due to our out of district placement and unanticipated excess cost numbers. So far, if we go down to the food service, almost down to the bottom, our deficit in the general fund projected heavily encumbered is $112,416. On the second page are the grants expenditures, which match the revenue side. These are actuals. The only one that's not actual is the ESSERS 2 grant, which hasn't been written yet, but we do have expenditures signed out to those lines. So the total deficit in the general fund at $112,416. Our anticipated transfer is post-retirement benefit of $36,000, high school trusts to match the expenditure of $44,434, and maintenance trusts of $33,000, gives us anticipated revenue of $113,434. So our general fund projected balance is $1,018.06. So it's pretty tight, but this is heavily encumbered. We do have some places that are over quite a bit. Buildings and grounds is over quite a bit. It's over 69,000 right now. But we've done a lot of repairs in the building. So I sent out some other reports. Does anybody have any questions on the expenditure report? I bore you guys, I can tell.
No, it's just keep moving it along. Just keep it moving.
There were a couple of questions that came up at the last meeting when you guys were talking about the budget. And so I just thought I would throw those out there. I did a staff increase 5-year fiscal year report to CPI. So I put this in the document. So the top line is the staff increases or the union increases. The line's black and white. I don't have the color.
The red looks like it's the top one, the union,
Is it?
right? And so that's the one that's higher.
Yeah, and then the middle line, starting with the number 2, is the staff increases, and then CPI, which is the consumer price index line. And you can see that starts out at 1.5 and then shoots up in this fiscal year to 5.4. The other thing I did was I did not change the numbers in the budget, but there was a question as to what it would look like if the staff increase was at 4.4. So I did do the math and did the monetary calculation to figure out what the difference is. So the total difference between the 4.4 and the 5.4 comes to $8,490. So just to give you some perspective on what the difference would be there.
And that's a total difference.
Yeah, that was everything. That was including the FICA and everything, the 403B, how it would play out. The other report that I did was a 10-year FTE report by category. So I was trying to figure out a good way to portray this note. There wasn't one. But I did budget to actuals because I was trying to give some kind of value as to what we anticipate in our budget and what actually happens in the year.
So hang on, Dan, I'm sorry. You're looking at the FY22 ACA now? Or is that-
No, I'm looking at this one here.
So
The
what's the
10-year,
title of it in the document?
10-year stuff.
Sorry, it's hard to keep up and it's called 10-year staffing.
Staff, yeah.
Oh, it's the first one.
the first
Sorry,
one
it's
there.
10-0, yeah, sorry.
So the purpose of this report was just to give an idea of how the FTEs have changed over time in a 10-year span. So I did it by category, by teachers, administration, para, and then all others. Meaning all the other staff in the building, buildings and grounds, the nurse, secretary, etc. And what the total comes out to. So this was just for your information. I don't know if it's useful or not. I hope it's useful.
So do we have enrollment numbers that go hand in hand? Because that was
So
one
I
of the
don't-
question came
I
up.
can try to do that and add that to it for next week maybe. And see if it.
Because this is the staffing only for this building, right? It factors out the costs of the high school, of course, it's not part of that.
Say that again.
Is it just for this building? and
It's
not
just
the
for,
rest?
yeah.
So,
But point being is when we're talking about enrollment, we should only talk about the children enrolled in this building.
yes, but
That's
you
what
have
I'm
to remember
saying.
too that you do have some personnel assigned to high school that are in our budget, in our local budget.
Okay,
So, and that falls under high school special ed. So those expenditures are coming from the district, but I can try to get you the enrollment numbers and add a column.
yeah, because that'll give us some context in a budget
Okay.
discussions, right?
So I'll do that and bring that next time.
Excellent.
Okay.
So we have to pay for that FTE, but we don't have the benefit of that person in our building, but it's on
The
our,
person is in our building.
oh, it is in our building.
Yes, yes.
Excellent.
And then the other one,
There's another one.
the other one that Sarah was referring to, which I didn't bring a hard copy from itself. But that one was the ACA FTE calculations going forward, projecting through the end of the year. So ACA has a different definition of who's full-time and who's part-time. So
Interesting.
So the calculation was done and then I just projected it out. So we are over 50 in 3 months, in September, in March, and in May. It's all based on how many work days there are in each month. So that is a critical piece of information. And so using the school calendar, you can tell how many school days there were. And it's all based on not actual data of how many hours are worked, but what the contractual obligation is. So that's also a piece of ACA. It's the contractual obligation, how many days are physically worked, and the definition of what constitutes full-time. So there may be, like in this FTE report, we're not looking at it in that vein. This FTE report is actuals based on people in the building. ACA would say that a 0.8 person would be full-time. Because anybody who works over 120 hours a month is full-time. That's what their definition is.
And then what's the difference between the two calculations, Stan, at the ACA versus
The regular
the
one.
regular one?
So the ACA one was really brought forward because the question then becomes, when do we become a large employer?
Okay, and then so the ACA definition is critical then for us
Yes,
to pay attention.
And that's Affordable Care Act.
yes.
Just want to clarify that.
this includes Oh, this is for the budget. Okay, I thought this was September 21, October 20.
It's
Okay, yeah,
projecting
it's
forward through
projected,
the
yeah.
school year.
Got it.
And it's really with that definition, it's really a decision-making process as to whether we, how you manage your FTEs. And, or if you're going to manage your FTEs. So the end result is when you become a large employer, you cannot go back in time. You can't ever go back to being a small employer. And you must provide affordable family benefits to all your staff that would qualify. So that's where that definition becomes important because it changes your expenditures or anticipated expenditures for the next year or this
Next to September, it says 21, that's the days in the school building.
year. Yeah. 21 work days, yeah.
So then how's the definition made? Will they average this out over a year? How do they?
No, so really, once you hit that 50 mark, you're supposed to become a large employer.
But that means we hit it this September.
Yes. So, and
You hit it 3 times in this school year.
in this school year,
Except March and April haven't happened yet, or March
Correct.
and May haven't happened yet, so we could do something to keep,
Right.
I don't know what, but.
Is it for the whole year, Janet, or is it for the month that you hit 50?
no, it's forever. Once you hit
Meaning
the
like, are
50
we already in?
Oh, yeah, so I was actually surprised when I did the projection and went out and was surprised that it fluctuated as much as it did because of the days. So at this point, with the FTEs that we have currently employed, that 50 mark is reached 3 times, and it's the 3 greatest months, the biggest workday months. So it's really just for your information and trying to strategize to manage FTEs.
Right, but that does not make us a 50 FTE employee yet, but it's
No.
about to.
Yes,
Okay. We're pretty much there.
yes, you're on the verging, towering threshold.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that other thing you did shows how the FTEs have gone up and up and up over time. Whatever the name of the other document was.
That's my 10-year report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the staffing report, yeah.
But I'll go back and pull the enrollment numbers and just add that column in so you can see that in context. And I'll bring that next week.
So we had 39.57 in 2013, and now so it's increased.
Well, thank you for filling all this information. I know that's a lot of work. So thank you. And I appreciate it because we talked about it last week and it's information for us all to now process as we continue to move forward with budget. So just kind of, it's just at least food for thought. Moving on, so informing of board docs, Sarah, if you could give us an update really quick.
We have begun the process of starting, the site is started. The training starts Monday, the 14th with Lydia, Yolanda, and I. And then there will be more information shared with you all once those initial things are put in place and that we understand and have the templates in place and are ready to help you learn the system. That's where we are.
Let's move forward. Next item, we need to vote on an on-call substitute for this month. So could I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Glenshaw, second by Greenway. All in favor of hiring an on-call substitute for this month? Aye.
Aye.
Phil? I'm gonna be off my screen.
He's got a thumbs up on the screen.
Excellent. All right, so motion carries. Thank you. Next is Corinne, if you could talk about our tech.
I will do my very best. So I have interpreted the needs and the request in the wrong way. So first of all, I don't have a technology plan for you to review tonight or approve, because my perceptions were completely wrong. So I'm gonna try to clarify where we're at and what the tech committee is actually asking for. And then I'm gonna defer it to you. So I was not accurate in understanding that the technology plan was going to be developed to project out over a multi-step years for how technology would be provided in the district, school and district. And so when there was discussion about changing position, adding positions, compensation and work, I didn't have the history and I didn't know what had been in place. And I perceived that I can't move forward on another position, a job description, or anything until I see a plan. So now I have learned that there has been a tech committee and there has been a technology plan that has been established in the past years and has been worked on and is continuing to be worked on because the committee feels they've got gaps in it. So it is not ready to bring to you. But on the flip side, what is the tech committee is actually asking is that they are requesting for compensation for a para doing the work of a technology specialist. The work was originally delivered by the former DA principal and the library media teacher. They were doing that internal support of the day-to-day troubleshooting, from what I understand. Software, networking, all those things that keep all of the system going. And when those positions were vacated, then there was a 0.4 position of a para that was budgeted for in this current year's budget. And that position was increased to a 1.0 FTE with a plan to supplement the cost through ESSER funds, because it wasn't in the budget. The ESSER fund grants have not yet been written because they require some sort of a district plan that has not been written yet. And the grant funds are not approved. That's why we've spent yesterday and again today working through what the needs are in the grants and what can I do and what can Janet do and what can Mickey do to try to get approval of at least being able to access some of these funds. But that takes a while. And so that was the plan. And then, of course, it all fell south. So in hearing all of this, then my first interpretation was, well, if you're calling this para a tech specialist, we don't have that job. We need a job description for the role of the tech specialist. And so they created a job description. And my perception was that job descriptions for new positions get vetted through the personnel committee. And so then I found out that, I learned that that's not the role of the personnel committee. So I didn't know that. I'm only drawing from my experience with the personnel committee, and that was my perception. So it didn't belong there either. But the bottom line is the request is for compensation for a para to do tech work and to be in a role of a tech specialist when there is no job description yet. And the process of changing a position, and I want to add that in the building of the FY23 budget, there was $40,000 added for tech personnel. I don't know why that amount. I know David Allen has gone out to the district and has been able to share with me late this afternoon the salary ranges of what districts pay for different levels of tech support staff. So that's helpful to me. But, again, it goes back to a job description. So the process of changing a position mid-year, okay, we hire a para, now we want to transition it to a tech specialist. Without proper job description, approvals, budgeting, or even following equal opportunity laws is unconventional to me. So I'm going to defer to the board for direction, guidance, and settlement of this issue. And so that's that one issue. After processing all my notes and rethinking this, one solution might be to, again, have a job description for this new position of tech specialist. Have it board approved and then post it. Because you've got to be an equal opportunity employer. And post it pending grant funding. That the position be paid pending grant funding. Then, if the para or any para or any teacher wants to apply for this position, then you've met the requirements of the law. One solution. If you have others, I certainly would welcome hearing that. The other need is for the contracted service with a tech director until the systems are in place and they need monitoring and upgrades by a tech specialist. We're implementing PowerSchool, a major student data management system. We're implementing board docs for providing efficiency and information in a more sustainable and consistent manner. And we're in discussions about how to go about that because our interpretation is that we had a vendor and we were going to just do a second contract with that vendor, but we think we need to go out to bid because it's over 10,000. So if any of you know any guidance that would allow us to be able to assign a second contract to the same vendor, even if that contract is at 10,000, which is the threshold of bidding, is it a cumulative amount that makes a difference? In other words, if we already had one $10,000 contract and we give a second one, we're now at 20. Are we required to bid for that second 10, or are they viewed as separate? So we feel it has to be bidded out, but I look for any expertise on that for you. So I apologize for my totally being in a tornado over this, but it has been a learning curve, and I really want to settle it one way or the other to be able to move on to other things that need to be taken care of. So I hope that I have represented the wishes of the tech committee appropriately.
Can I just add one thing? There are job descriptions in the tech plan.
Yes, and I received an updated job description for that. Yeah. I don't know if they've been board approved. I mean, they could have been before, but not since I've been here, so I don't know.
Any questions for it?
Are they requesting the committee added para time for this year or next year?
No, they already added para time this year, and there was no funding in the budget. It was apparently expected that the ESSER grants would fund that balance, so it really wouldn't affect local budget, but the increase in the position has already been made without the money being available. And you can't spend any federal or state grants prior to state approval. Okay. So the request is to get paid as a technology specialist because that's the work that's being done, not the work of a para in supporting student instruction. Did I get that right? Good.
But we did discuss these, if these are the same positions, these were discussed. Do you recall? Because I do.
We discussed.
This was summertime,
No, June.
June, well, right at the end of the school year.
Yeah.
It was,
Job descriptions were brought to the table.
well, I don't know if the board voted on the job descriptions. My memory is foggy on that, but
I think the idea was brought forth, but then it never materialized at that point.
well, I don't think we would have gone out to have David Allen without that discussion on those job descriptions.
Well, so the question of David came up in our August meeting that when we, right, it was August. or
But I
September
think that
we
the
met.
hiring of the contracted labor to sort out some of these larger tech issues spun out of that other conversation of those job descriptions. That is my recollection, and I could be wrong. I'm not saying again that we voted on it. I'm just saying there were conversations about these things. It's not like a big surprise.
No, it's not all of it's surprise. Yeah.
Was there a conversation when we did approve this contingent upon the
the grant, as I recall, I don't think of grants as being something that's available year over year, and that it's a temporary, decision for a position that's not expected to continue. And I might be thinking about that incorrectly, but that's how I recall it.
No, it's not, you're right, a grant usually is the seed money to start something, but it's not sustainable because you can't depend on it every year.
And what is the?
Well, it came as part of when Laura left and cobbling together a construct, because she gave her notice and it wasn't built into the budget. And the only way that they could address it was to use grant funding and recognize that it would have to be built into the following budget. If we were gonna stay with that construct, that model could change, with the tech committee or what have you, but that was how that came out because of her resignation. And when they looked at Becky, right, is that the person, and her role and what the skill set, this is how that all kind of sort of built out, I believe.
Right, there's
So
going to be a
Becky
lot.
applied for a job. I'm sorry, that job was posted.
Right,
One
but
of
there were
them-
components that were still missing, because part
Yes.
of why Laura was going was sort of, I think.
That's why
scope
this
and
has
breadth.
been all a surprise.
Well, I don't want to talk about people, but your positions you filled, you have a library media specialist and a tech integrator. And a tech integrator is not the person that is going to work the network, it's the person that's going to work with teachers and integrating
Right.
use of technology with students.
And
So
wasn't
it's a
that one
different
of the
role.
issues in the resignation was sort of that they were very different roles,
Or that it was too much.
and it was too much for one person.
And so we went from a model of 1.5 FTE to the request of 2 FTE. And I think actually we may have started at the beginning of last year with just 1 FTE in the library media specialist position. And then it ramped up to an assistant, which is 0.4, 0.5. And then maybe that wasn't enough. So it changed to 2. And that's the current request. And I think that when it was presented to us at the end of the year, that it would be 2. I don't have a great recollection of that conversation, but I recall that it was sort of a stopgap until we could get someone in here to help us figure out what we really needed. And I do remember having the conversation about the contracted services and being concerned that the $10,000 cap wouldn't be enough. And so at that time, I had hesitancy toward approving that because of concern that we would overextend or feel like we would need to overextend that cap. And here we are.
Yeah, I think in the director position, there were 2 ways of addressing it. And that one thought was to do it with tasks. And that was to do, this is a hire to integrate Power School and have that as one hiring position and then having another one. Although again, I don't know if that would be a legal skirt of the law to hire for everything else. To be able to separate those 2 tasks out, and then you wouldn't have to go out to bid. But again, since it's the same person, I don't know if that would be legal or not.
Janet, if you have to add time and it goes over the amount that we originally did, does that trigger? It needs to go out to bid no matter what?
So in our purchasing policy, it is the cap, like anything between 10 and, I think it's 10,
Right.
and
but if you-
250,000, you're supposed to go to bid.
Right,
It
but
is,
but we started and it's now getting expanded, so we're having to add hours.
so I think the problem here is that if you're gonna use federal grant funds to pay for this, federal grant would require that you follow that
Got it.
process.
It's because we're gonna use grant funding to pay for that contracted role. Got it.
So it's not too late though to list the position then and follow. the
To do an
rules.
RFP.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not too late. You
It's
have
not
to
too
do the
late.
second contract, but I think
Yeah.
And we have to recognize that it's less than ideal, right? Because I don't think that he came in and just decided to work on Power School only, right? These
Oh, gosh,
projects are
no.
all
He
in
fixed
parallel,
a
Oh my
gazillion
gosh,
things.
yeah,
Right.
you couldn't even list.
Yeah.
right?
Page
And so,
wouldn't be long
so you
enough.
can't like, okay, that
Right.
project done, and so to your point,
Right,
or to your suggestion.
but we didn't do that anyway, so it doesn't, it's kind of
Right.
irrelevant.
I mean, it's just a hassle factor, that's all.
Well, so I
Because
guess
odds
the
are
other
you're
question
gonna
is
change who you
how,
work with.
how long the process is going out to RFP, and we're not allowed, I would assume we're not allowed to continue and like to contract until we have that completed, right? That process completed. Or do we have to halt it at 10,000 and say, okay, we can't have your services until, because
That would be problematic.
It is
well,
problematic
that would be,
now.
but it was the legal
Yes.
way to do it. And
Yes.
we have to stick with the legal.
We'd have to pay with it, with our funds in-house, I guess. You know, over another line. And then once the grant comes and we go through the process, whatever services past that, we'd use the grant for, right?
Well, we've already, I believe we're already past the original contract amount.
I see.
It hasn't been paid out, but it hasn't been billed out either. But I believe that service has already been rendered beyond the original
The 10.
contract, yeah. And I'm not sure, because the federal grant piece throws a wrinkle into it, but no matter what, we broke our policy. So the federal grant audit, we will have a federal grant audit. They come in every year from the state and they look at all the federal grants and all the monies and make sure that we have time and effort studies and all those things that go with all our grant expenditures. And I don't know that we could, I don't know what the solution is. That doesn't, I don't have a good solution.
So
Other than
somebody got a $10,000 purchase order. Who authorized the additional expenditure, the overage on this then? If he's already
So,
passed.
I
that?
really think that it was unintentional, to be honest
Okay.
with you. I think it was a matter of just course of working through these problems and just continuing to work. And not saying, oh, I have to bill out that much and now I've got, reached my cap and I'm done. I think it was really more of a continuation of just trying to problem solve and fix things.
Was there a contract though that was signed
Yes,
that it was that person's acknowledgement
yes.
that? we
And this
can't
person
take
does
over?
work in other schools, so is aware that going over means you don't get paid.
Well, I think that, and I don't know, I can't really speak to this, but I believe that, well, they may be an employee of the other school as opposed to a subcontractor, but I don't know that for sure.
Hmm.
I can't answer that, but. And it may be that the contract with the other school is greater in scope than what we offer.
Can just add that the service you're getting is phenomenal, and
Yeah,
it's on demand.
I mean, he's worked on everything, phones.
I mean.
Phil, do you have any thoughts? We haven't heard from you.
Yeah, I have a couple. I think there's two issues here. There's the contractor issue that we're talking about now. Look, and Janet just went through the numbers and things are really tight. So I think we're gonna have to take a look to see where that money might come from. Because projecting out to the end of the year, it's showing just over $1,000 left. And secondly, I'll go back to what Corinne said. I think that having her prepare that plan so that we have a full picture and can make an informed decision is the way to go. I don't think we have that tonight.
You're talking about with regards to the other position.
Correct.
I'd like more clarification on what is expected in the plan, because I feel like we have put our plans in place. What we're reluctant to share or get the stamp of approval is because there are things that we want to fine tune in there, but knowing our direction and knowing the jobs that we need to have done, we're very clear on that. and we're very clear on the teaching with technology that we want to do. We just want to find the best document that's going to guide us that way, but we have a lot that we're working from. We're just putting it together so it's like really reflect what we do at the school. So I'm looking at tech plans in other schools. We always look down the road. Hanover's most recent one was 2012. They don't do these anymore. They're not required by the state. And their tech plan addresses curriculum in 1 page, 1.5 pages, and it's just broad goals. And they also address equipment and staffing, and I feel like our plan has done that.
Well, the
So
question.
Maybe I
Sorry.
misunderstood Corinne. I thought Corinne was suggesting that this needed to be looked into further.
No, the committee informed me that they were still working on it.
Only in terms of like curriculum in general. We are working on it. It's like, I wouldn't want to put in front of you our complete, writing curriculum. It's always a work in progress, and this is what we do, and this is where we are now. And so it's not something that we're working on to get a final draft. It's something that we're working on to guide us. So right now, the document has a lot of comments. We have opened it up to share. You can see that it's a working document, and we're really thinking about it and adding to it. So I would just like clarification on why we have this expectation to get this one approved, a plan approved.
The only thing I could say is from my experience, anytime there's a district plan, whether it's strategic, it's tech, it's governance, it's inventory, it gets board approved. If that's not your practice, then let's take it off the table.
We
Why are
have
we
a
talking
strategic
about it?
plan that guided
Yeah,
our plans for
yeah,
tech.
it's just from my experience, all those school plans get board approved and then get revised by committee. If you don't do that, then I'm guiding you down the wrong road.
I don't feel like that's something that needs.
Because I think that, so I will think that, I think of the COVID reopening plans, and those are living documents. And
Right, they change all the time.
and they're changing, but there was that board stamp of approval that we're good with what's there and kind of that okay. And correct.
And I'd like direction from the board, what other plans will want to be, you want to see for approval, because this is new to me in my role as academic director.
Maybe it's the plans, maybe it's because we're close to this 50 FTE that is creating this desire to understand the staffing around certain aspects of plans. And certainly with the tech, we were looking at roles again and like how to hire. Like I do remember like some chart where we had like a 1 and a 5, and if we do have to really think strategically now about our staffing. So maybe that's why this is different. That's what I'm suggesting. I don't know. I don't think it would be every plan. I mean, would it be?
I think most plans in general would come before the board in terms of like a facilities plan that would likely come before the board to lay out the plans for how you're going to spend money, right? That's the idea, is that it's the kind of the roadmap for the money for the board, not for necessarily but you're also looking for the justification for the money, right? I think that's how I would interpret the
I can see that if there's,
right.
But your FTEs are the same.
Yeah, and the subcontractor doesn't affect your.
Right.
FTEs.
Your FTEs are the same, yeah.
But I think we're talking about both the subcontractor and the other.
The other 2 positions.
Repair,
The tech
Even
integrator.
if our FTEs are the same, we have an issue.
Well, you're talking about
getting
different
50
changing of
over 50,
position.
right? So we need to.
I will say
think
taking
about
the
that.
50 out of this conversation is that we have tech needs that need to be filled at the school and jobs that need to be compensated for. So I'd like to not keep bringing the 50 in, because I'd like us to talk about what we need to manage the tech we have at the school and to keep moving forward the way we'd like to. And this is what this committee has.
Hey,
Brad, excuse me,
This is Tom Harkins. I'm sorry, I know this is not my place to chime in, but can I give a faculty statement now in the middle of this conversation?
Sure.
So somebody just mentioned justification for these funds, and then Elise just mentioned the tech needs. And I've been trying to not chime in, but like Lydia on a day-to-day basis does such incredible amounts of work for me personally, and I know for everyone else. Anytime we bring her up, we talk about how important she is to us. And
Right.
the fact that she's getting paid as a para and not getting paid for her work is it's a product of a lot of obviously very confusing situations that you're all talking about, with ESSER grants not being completed, et cetera. And you know, administration structure change, you know, the administration changing and things not being in place the way they should be. And I understand that it's complex to change a position throughout the year. My fear is if she continues to be underpaid for her work and decides that she could find, you know, suitable compensation somewhere else, we would be in a lot of trouble on a day-to-day basis at the school, and that would severely impact the students and the teachers. And I just haven't heard anybody say that explicitly, so I just wanted to make that clear from the teacher's point of view. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Tom. Vince, you were gonna say.
So,
something?
well, I was gonna respond to that. So you may recall last year, the reason the discussion about a plan came up was because, you know, the need to maintain the estate seemed to require more and more staff, right? That's what we were seeing with Laura, and Laura was saying that.
Please don't use names.
Sorry, but Laura's no longer working.
But our text, our
My text
text,
message.
we
The
talked
point
about
being is
position.
we discovered that the estate of devices here was significant, and the budget for just buying new devices was relatively high for the size of the school we had. That's when the discussion started, and also was had extensively in the tech committee. We needed a teaching plan around technology, right? Like buying technology just because you can is not a very good reason to bring it into a school, right? We believe that it improves the experience that the students have, where we're able to more effectively teach. But that doesn't mean we can just, you know, every classroom for every student that walks in needs one device that needs to be maintained. I say, I get that, right? Like that requires a ton of additional work and maintenance. So we said, as a board back then, listen, if we're gonna, you know, bring technology into the classroom, this is a new thing. Let's build out a strategy for it and how this improves the life of the children, how we're not going to have 350 devices for 200 kids. It seems excessive. And then maybe the amount of maintenance and care and feeding of that estate doesn't require as much, you know, contractors or staffing to be brought in. That's why the point of a plan was brought up.
And that's why we do have a plan. We do have a number of computers. Part of our number that you quote has to do with two things. We did have to up our number of devices when we went remote, but also we changed from an old-fashioned model of a bunch of desktop computers in a lab, like 30 of them, and then a bunch in all the different classrooms. Those are still on our inventory, but they're not how we use them now. We don't teach all the all the kids going to a lab and coming back again. So we have moved to one-to-one devices, which we needed to do to be up to speed in the middle school in the time that I've been here. We have brought more Chromebooks down to 4th and 5th grade because they should be on Chromebooks in 4th and 5th grade to get their typing skills up to speed. We actually would have them in 3rd grade because they should be getting familiar with the keyboard. So yes, we have some devices in the school. If you look at the inventory, it looks like a large number, but some of those are getting, you know, aged out, and we're recycling them, and we're looking very carefully at how we can streamline these devices so that everyone's using Chromebooks. We're looking at doing that for staff even, so that we can project and use the other peripheral devices in the classroom in a more streamlined way. So I feel like we have put a lot of thought into the plan, a lot of thought into how we replace those, how we maintain them, how we use them in the classroom. So I will say I do take offense when you say that we need more planning around how we use technology, because I feel like we have that in place.
I'm sorry you take offense at it. It's a reasonable question. I haven't seen a tech plan that describes any of the things that you just outlaid there. So if it does exist, right, and not just to say, at least, I mean, you and I have had a conversation about this, and you made it clear this plan would exist in the first month of school during that conversation, right? We are
I
now
didn't
in
promise a
December, right?
plan in the first month of school, knowing that our turnover in our department.
I mean, however you want to phrase it, I mean, but please don't take offense. The question is still exactly the same as it was the month before the school opened, the month after the school opened, as it is today.
We
Right?
have a plan
Please
that
share,
is
right?
guiding us.
And then let's have a discussion about it. I think it's a reasonable request. I mean, we just saw a report how staffing has grown in this school over the years, right? I routinely ask the question, geez, we seem to be adding a lot because the work needs to be done. Well, what is it that we're no longer doing? Well, apparently we're doing everything, right? Like, so these questions are going unanswered. So if you take offense with that, I'll take offense to that statement that I just saw. Right, and so please, right, it wasn't meant as an offense, but the question is still open and outstanding. Nobody here is not trusting the work doesn't need to be done.
Can I say something? It's Becky.
Please go ahead.
So we do the tech plan. I was the one that asked if we could not present this because it's true that it's not completely developed. What is developed and what could be shared is the vision and the goals and the job descriptions, which were shared. I emailed those out. And the work, I just want to reiterate what Tom was just saying, is that the para is doing the work of what was being done previously by the tech director. What's happening with our tech director that we're contracting with is not in the original job description. That person has been waylaid with so many other things and is not being able to fulfill the job. The para is doing the job.
So from a board member perspective, when maybe it was June, when we were asked to approve an increase in FTE and that it would be funded with a grant, was that amount presented to the board at that point anything other than for a para position?
I thought we only voted on the tech integrator in June. Am I incorrect?
You have to go back to minutes. I don't remember.
So Hayes, I mean, you're asking.
I'm asking.
I don't recall that. I think we voted on the tech integrator for a 1.0 and then we didn't have a board meeting. And I think we gave Jeff the ability, our district administrator, to fill any vacancies.
Vacancies have to be filled with a job description. You can't.
But there were job descriptions.
Okay, but I'm just asking that whatever was going to be filled, which was a half an FTE over the summer, is that correct?
There were additional hours that we approved
Okay, but I meant
over the summer.
for the school year.
0.6.
There were three that
There
were
were
talked
three
about in
that were
June.
talked about in June and then resent in August. I'm just going through the history. So there are these job descriptions that are out there.
However, I don't think I would have necessarily understood fully that maybe the part-time position was being funded as a paralegal.
Professional.
They were
Professional,
upgrading.
not
Did I say
paralegal.
paralegal? I'm
Different
sorry.
world.
But I think that like
They
from a
upgraded, that
board
was
perspective
just-
and expenditure point of view, I don't believe that we thought we would be looking to expend anything other than at a para level for this position. There was no monetary component tied to it. other than like what the source of funding would be. And, you know, there are particular job categories that we have in the school. There's the contracted CBA bound staff and the non-union staff and the paras, and they, you know, they fit the different categories. I think that what I'm trying to get at is, I feel like we should stick with what we agreed to in terms of what we expected to fund this position.
We didn't expect to fund it at a para level. They were gonna use grant funding.
But what,
But how much of it do you know?
right?
I mean,
I
I
don't
can't
know.
I'm
find
trying
a
to go
record
back
on-
to the minutes to see if
So
it's in
so
there,
it
because
sounds like the problem is that even if we did have an understanding that things may have shifted though, and so
Right.
part of me is like, I don't know if it's gonna do us a lot of good to do all, I mean, it's useful to know, because it's good to know like where to look. But like, if we have a new situation on our hands with the tech, the new contracted tech director who fixed a lot of things for us, and we are very grateful for that. And, you know, we need more time. How do we achieve that? And do we want to do that? And it is part of having the tech director come in and having the tech integrator come in order to help with this plan. I mean, that seems like everything's going according to plan as we wanted. Now we're being brought more information. We just need to figure out what to do. It's all like, it's just so simple, right, Corinne? We can,
I mean,
But
it's
Oh,
all-
can
yeah, so I'll go back to my suggestion from a while ago and recommend that Corinne take a closer look at this for us and come back with a recommendation.
I don't know what else I could look further. You have a para position and you want
Well,
to change.
Corinne, let me make a suggestion. The one of the things that's not included here is the financial piece, right? That needs to be integrated with the plan so that the board can understand not only the job description side of it, the roles and responsibilities that Elise and Tom and others have spoken to, but also the financial. We need to integrate that perspective so that we can make an informed decision. Because I feel like with some of the conversation recently, we've just been going around in circles and there's not clarity on how that all comes together as a plan. And I don't see how we can make an informed decision without having an integrated perspective put before us.
Can I get just reiterate so I understand? So are you asking to get the cost of the job description for a tech specialist, the cost of that, or a salary for that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing that there's a delta, there's a gap that currently exists right now, as Tom spoke to, between the para role and the tech specialist role. Okay, so how are we going to close that gap, whether it be with ESSER 3 funding, as has been suggested, or another creative idea that could come out of the budget? My point before is that, you know, I think we're pretty tight right now, so I think we're going to have to sharpen the pencil to figure out where that comes from, as well as to address the needs that have been spoken to about the contracted position, right? And you know, I'm hearing that individual is adding value through that contract. So what can we do to ensure that continues to support the faculty and staff in the way that they need to be supported?
And I would also add to that, it would be great to really better understand the projected amount of work and how that adds up in a dollar amount. And I wish that I had asked for that
For
before,
which position, please?
for the contracted position.
Oh, so a projected,
Right, I mean,
Need-
what else needs to be done here? Because I hear that this person's done a lot of work. It's been a lot of really good, important work. Like, I have no idea how much more needs to be done. Like, are we going to be sitting here 2 months from now asking to extend this contract again?
Right.
Where are we in this process of
Well,
fixing things?
I mean, my hope would be that. And I think Dave has tried to send us some information to try to help develop an RFP for us when we go out to bid. That he can give us a really good idea of what needs to be done throughout the rest of the year, and then you do it as a chunk. It's not just, just another $10,000 contract. It would be the whole job, whatever else needs to be done for the rest of the year. That would be my hope.
But how did we originally bid it though? Because I
I
don't.
did it because I intentionally that chose the contract to be 10,000, so we wouldn't have to go to bid. And I believe.
No, I
that was-
understand, but the
yeah.
specific ask was the power school migration, I thought, wasn't it?
I don't know. I don't know that that's in the contract. I'd have to go back and look at it.
That was the
I
most
didn't write
urgent
it.
need at the beginning.
Right.
To move to a student information system. And then as he was in the school, then it was like, oh, our phones and our.
This is
cameras
broken and
our
this is
things
broken.
and our key system.
Right. No, I understand. So, but I guess the question that is asked is, he was in the school and saw other things needed to happen. We didn't go out and say, oh, let's put out a, request for that or a bid for that. He didn't finish the work of the power school migration and instead work on other things.
Well, no,
Is
it's
that-
time, it takes time for the power school, it takes.
It's a
all that
multi-step
time.
process to get that management system.
And I
in
think
place,
that
yeah.
part of it too was that just the whole internet in the building wasn't working properly. At least my conversations with them.
Oh,
So,
sure, no, and we know that, right? Like
Yeah.
we struggled with that.
so he's trying to fix those things so that other student systems would work.
But
in the
my major concern right now is the power school migration isn't done, and he's burned through the money. And we might have to have, someone else might come in and say like, oh, I can do this for half the price, and now we've lost the person who knows.
the system,
Continuity.
right.
Yeah,
And there's
I
no
You don't
understand.
have
I
to
get it.
pick the lowest price. You can pick who you want. You don't have to sit and, if you think you've got the right person, you gotta go out to bid, but it doesn't mean you go and ditch the guy.
Yeah,
Right, you're right,
it's
you're
true
right.
too. As long as you go through the bid process,
Yeah.
Unless you have the public.
then you
process,
award the
yeah.
bid on whatever criteria you choose to award. the
But how
bid.
long will the bid process take?
So
Does it
that's it.
take
You guys
months?
have to sort of come up with a timeline.
Right.
We need to post it. We need to give
How long
them.
does it have to be posted?
Can we
for?
post it for a week? 2 weeks?
2 weeks, 1 week?
I was suggesting 2 weeks, but I don't have any.
Yeah.
What's
Is there
required? I would do it
required
as short
number
as
of people?
possible. Just go out,
Yeah.
whatever the required amount is and be done with
No,
it.
sometimes you get 2 bids, sometimes you get 5. You
Yes,
just-
but that's
But there's
what it
no
is.
requirement that there has to be more than one bid.
Well, there is. You have to have more than one bid.
You do have to have more than
If
one.
you have no takers,
Then
that's another story.
Right,
So,
so
but you
there's
have
that
to at least
question
try
too.
to elicit more than
you have
one
to
bid.
try to get one.
It sounds like that is the direction we're heading with that, with the director position, is to go towards the RFP,
Yeah, we have to.
because we have to.
Yeah, I think it's obviously it's less than ideal, however, like,
But
if we had
there's-
known this 2 months ago, that the money was being expended, then we could have started this then.
Right.
And we wouldn't have a gap in service, potentially.
So I guess my question would be, do you want to try to complete this process by a particular date? You'd have to have a board meeting, or you'd have to have a committee or something, I imagine a board meeting to go over the bids and award. You have to
So I
award
think
them.
we do it as quickly as,
Yeah, I
as
should
short
have
a
Christmas
time
get
frame
that-
as we
get
can
that
do
out
it.
for the holidays.
And we will, you
We'll
know,
find we'll get a quorum.
we'll just
together.
get a quorum and,
Agree.
you know, most of us can probably do it on Zoom as long as we get somebody in the
Exactly.
building.
Because
So
we have to do a deadline, like for the bidders. we
Yeah,
have
do
to
it as
give them a
quick as
deadline
possible.
to
So
submit
can you
their bid
post it
by.
tomorrow?
I can't get in the paper for tomorrow,
Yeah.
and I need more criteria. I need more
She needs
criteria. I need
information, put in
information.
the RFP, so we're talking with David about that.
So do we need to
Can I,
move
can I
that?
ask a question? Is the
Yeah.
tech director and tech specialist the same person?
No,
No,
Is a tech integrator a third person?
Yeah.
yes,
yes.
it's connected. Tech
I knew it was
integrator
completely
is
screwed.
connected to library media.
Right.
So do I have a motion to put the director of technology position up for bid with an RFP?
Sure. I'll do it.
Moved by Glenn Shaw. Second by Green.
Is 2 weeks a reasonable
There any
time? What's all
further
the
I
data?
think we should do it shorter if we can.
And really, it's a matter of coming, I can make the ad fairly quickly, and
Okay.
when I can get it in the paper, I can post it on the listserv.
Okay,
So those things, and that's your start time.
so what does the feds require? Do you know?
No, but it's really fairness to the bidders. So you have to give them a certain amount of time. You give them the criteria in your ad. You give them 2 weeks to look at it, come up with a bid, a week and a half, and then you would receive the bids, give them a deadline as to when they need to have the bids back to us. Now, in the electronic age, it's a little bit easier because you can give them an email address. It doesn't have to be all by mail, et cetera. And then you need to have your meeting and review all the bids and then award it.
Must include a notice of requirement.
We're 2.5 weeks before the holiday.
So
And then there's a Christmas break of a week, so you technically could give those 3.5 weeks and have a special board meeting on set and ready on the 3rd to look at what's come in.
Yep.
And then you're not, you're close, you're not too far out. That's just my suggestion, but you can certainly.
Does
Yeah,
that
they tell
sound-
you everything about, other than how long you have to have it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think there's a time frame, but really you have to just do it in a manner that is
This
fair
shouldn't be
to
a
all
tough
bidders.
bid, I think.
If you could do a week
You could do
and a
a
half,
week.
go for it.
Do-
if
yeah,
if
you
think
could
it's
do it
fine.
that-
Yeah, and I just don't know how tough the bid would be because I don't know what the criteria is. Like, I don't know how many bids
Well,
we're
if
asking for.
Dave has basically the construct of what the bid would be for, then you've got what you need to
Yeah.
post. We post it for a week. We then,
Even a week.
we might even be able to get something in before the end of the
You
year.
might, yep.
So
That would
I
be
just feel
ideal
like-
at this
yeah,
stage of the
I
I mean,
think
if we
we
can
should
put it
get
in
done,
and have it go, yeah.
because
If
there's
it's
no
vote for a week
time.
and we have a bid and that's legal, then that would be great.
Yeah.
I think that going by the legal.
Yeah, there's nothing, I'm
Have to
looking
stay
at the
legal.
required bid slice for contracts over 10K, I don't know,
Yeah.
there's nothing in it about.
That would
So,
move
so
that.
here's, but I just wanted to clarify that I understand what we're doing right now. Is we've heard there is no money, but we're still going out to solicit additional work. Are we soliciting simply who can give us another $10,000 worth of work? Or we have a specific list of asks with a guidance of how much time we think that's going to take?
That's what I have to get. from
That's what
Dave.
we're collecting.
Yeah,
Because I wouldn't
You
know,
have to have that
I
for the
can't
bid.
answer that
but
question.
that could be, maybe it's $25,000.
Right, and if that's the case, then hopefully he would,
Tell us.
that's fine.
So the RFP is going to be for a project or a position?
It's going to.
It's
be-
for a service.
Set of
So the
services.
service of director, the services
Overseeing
of
the
a director of
networking.
technology.
The set of
Transition
services.
of the student management system.
Tech director position services.
So I mean, I think that I was just gonna bring this up, that the title tech director kind of rubs me in a strange way, because it makes me has the sense that someone is directing.
Yeah,
with
an
more of a
administrative position.
long-term,
Right.
position.
Yeah.
And so could we use consultant?
You
What
could
what
use
is,
technology
do you have
consultant.
input on that, Elise? What?
No,
this-
it makes tech consultants, because that's what we're doing.
Tech
We're
consultants
consulting
with
with
that,
them on different projects.
Because I mean, someone could see that tech director
know,
in
it
the
sounds like a
paper
job in
and
this.
be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Good
you know.
point.
All right.
And then I just want to finish touching on the other role, which is.
You're
para-
gonna call.
Well, I'm sorry, you got a motion on the table.
So, all in favor of putting this position for tech consultant out to bid?
Hang on, one more question, if you don't mind.
Yes. Go ahead.
Because we're going to put out a whole list of additional work items. When we originally did this, we said the amount of work for this, we're gonna cap because of budgetary reasons and other kinds of reasons, right?
It was because of the 10K.
It was because of the 10K thing, right? Elizabeth, right. So right now, we might hear back that we need to spend $25,000 to get the job done. Right? The original estimate was that $10,000 was enough to get the job done.
No, the original estimate was more. It was adjusted to
It was
10,
capped, yeah.
so that it wouldn't have to be bid out. When we said, is this enough money? It doesn't look like enough money, and there was silence. We went, okay, we understand what's going on here. We're voting on 10,000. I mean, that was my understanding of it.
I
That-
must
that
have
there
misunderstood. I
probably
must have
was-
misunderstood, but I'm sensitive to what we're gonna get now. I mean, what if we do get like a big number back? And do we have to sit again and talk? Because, as we learned, there's no money.
Do we
Well,
have
there
I
might
mean,
be
the bid
money.
can cap it, the bid can cap the amount, right? When you put in the bid specs, can't services no more than, totaling no more than.
I think we're gonna have to trust Corinne to make that
Okay.
call.
All right. We'll
Does
do
that
that.
make sense to stick to that
And then
amount?
if we
No, I
have
think you
bids,
have to
do we have to
first
take one if we
understand
change
what
our
Dave
mind?
says.
Right.
And use your judgment
Do we have
because
to
of the
take
needs
one
of
of
the
those
school.
bids?
Right.
Or could we just say, oh, we changed our mind and not accept the bids?
You
Just
can
because you
do
go that
that,
way.
but then you just have to have a strategy on how you're gonna
Well,
get.
right,
it
no,
done.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Is there
I mean,
any
you
way we
certainly
might,
don't have to. you're not
we might
forced
table
to
this
accept
till next Tuesday when we do meet again?
No, because
Because
we need to do
the
the
budget
RFP.
season, we gotta get the RFP out there.
Well, there was just a comment that maybe it's a bad timing of the year for the RFP.
It doesn't matter, because you
Yeah.
just gotta get it posted.
Okay, if it doesn't matter, I just want to make sure that
There's
that
no
was
good
not a
timing.
timing
All right.
issue.
Good time.
So I'd like to call the vote, if all in favor of going out to RFP
For the position
for this
of
position
tech
of,
consultant.
correct, tech consultant.
With the understanding that Corinne will see what the list of the needs
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
And
she'll
it's not
manage
just
it.
a list of wants, it's a
Yeah.
list of needs,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because we're sort of.
So the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Now, going back to the other position of tech coordinator. Right, tech
Right,
coordinator.
tech specialist, I
Tech
think is the
specialist.
job title, yes. So I just want to say for that is that it is I talk positions because that's what we pay. And it's a para position at a certain hourly rate. The person filling that position is doing an exceptional job as a tech specialist. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. And the value that is being put into the service from that para is exceptional. And if you didn't have that particular position, you would have to find someone to provide that service from the outside. What I struggle with, again, is following equal opportunity employment federal law. It's the opportunity that you have to, by law, give to everyone. And that's why I was suggesting, well, maybe if you agreed on the job description already for a tech specialist, and I proceed to come with a salary range, because now I have some resources to add to that in terms of salary ranges, that you post for a tech specialist, but it's pending grant funding. Then you have met the criteria for equal opportunity employment. It obviously, you hope that that para applies for that, but you haven't closed the door for any other employee to apply, because everybody has to have the right to apply. And the bottom line is the school administration has the final decision on who the candidate is. It's that piece that's not being followed that I just can't put my license on.
Can I just ask a question? This is just a question.
Yeah.
What is the individual's understanding of the job that they were asked to do? Because I think it got shifted and there was a conversation. So I just want to make sure that the employees understanding is clear, because I think of the human factor.
Right,
That, if the person's understanding was that the
That's
job
what
got
they're doing.
changed and that they were this tech person, and now we're asking them to then go, and you hope the person applies. I just want to make sure that we think of, and I understand we're thinking of positions, but people, if a person understood that their job was X, I just want to make sure we tread carefully, because the human piece and the culture that we've espoused is that we are in the human business, so to speak. And so I just want to make sure if
I know
it
what
was
you're
our
saying.
era, I understand we've
Yeah.
got to do that, but I also want to recognize that that individual may have been delivered a set of information, and because of all the scuffle of the summer, it didn't get completed, and now we're telling that person, well, no, that's not the job. You're technically a para.
So Corinne,
So I just wanted to just. name
And I
it.
can't answer your question, really. I mean, maybe Elise can, you
Can I
know,
ask a question?
maybe the parent can answer it herself. I don't know. I don't have all that history. They've tried to explain it to me, but it's one of a multitude of
Things,
you
I
know,
understand.
things.
I just
It's
want us to
it's
be
just
careful.
following the law in that when
I
you
understand
hire,
it.
you know, if you hire somebody in a certain position, you can't change it midstream to a new position with a higher rate of pay without giving the opportunity for somebody else for that. It's the legal piece,
Yeah, no, I understand.
not the personal piece. Hayes?
I just want to understand is the legal need to post it, is that because of the job title change or because of the request for compensation change?
I think it's both. It's a different job than what was on the books. So para position is different.
And so
Or
that's,
tech
I guess that was my question.
So it's a different
My original
position.
question, what was on literally the books?
Okay.
The para position.
And so that's what we, as board members, understood the compensation to be.
No,
I don't
think
know.
So.
That's what's so messy is I don't know those details. And it's very frustrating because people have a perception that this was, they were informed that this was happening and this was gonna happen
Right.
and this is how we do it. And the work is completed to the nth degree. And here we are, wanting to compensate for a job that has changed in the process. That's why I kind of throw my hands up at it. It's not fair to the person. I think she got a raw deal. I'll be honest with you.
And I think though, from the board perspective, at least from my perspective, was, when we heard about it before, ignorant in the fact that knowing that it would be considered anything other than the duties of, paras have many different duties
Yeah,
in
they
the
do.
school,
They-
right?
Yeah,
And so
jack of all trades.
understanding that that is more specialized was not something that was presented to us. And I think if it had been, I think we would have and we had known that it needed a different compensation
Yeah,
model,
yeah.
then we would have said, okay, this is a new position. It needs to be posted. It needs to,
Right.
you know,
And that's where it was dropped when Jeff resigned. He had
Because
the
we
job
had that
description,
debate.
title, right.
We had that debate and because he presented, I think, the idea of using the grant funding because it wasn't in the budget. And I
What
think
was
you
in the
may
budget-
brought up the fact, doesn't it have to get posted? And so they were going back and then we had this gap. And so the individual went forward thinking it was reconfigured and it didn't get reconfigured because it never got processed fully because of that exit.
And what was approved was some summer work for the para.
Yeah.
So we could get the devices up and going and to get school started. So, no.
but the fact is, if it was a new position with a new compensation rate, it would require a posting and
Right, you
an
can't just
application
give a
job
person in a
process.
certain
Right, but it
category
finished.
a different job
So,
but
that's
it's
out of
personal.
that category.
that person wasn't really officially given that job. It was, the person was working on, doing tasks to get school started. And then I happened to be in the role that I couldn't really advocate for that. So we waited until a superintendent could come and then immediately it's like, okay, here's some issues, here's some things to look at. And it's taken this long to just
To bring it to the board.
Right.
And so
So-
back to, I'm sorry, Elise.
No, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
That's part of the
it's
timing.
been
of it.
caught,
Yeah.
it's been caught in a
Yeah.
whirlwind, and the
And
work
so,
is
but
getting
back to
done.
Phil's question, because I think we're still kind of going round and round. He had a question about what are the financial implications?
Correct, and I do have that information I can share with
Right
you.
now.
I gotta dig it out. I just got it late this afternoon, so I'd rather
Because the issue is this year, are we gonna use ESSER to pay for this year? Is that the federal grant that we're talking
So I
about?
was reviewing the June minutes when we voted on the tech integrationist position, and it said the board received assurances that we were in compliance with grants to fulfill these various roles that would be filled over the summer. So I don't know, I guess this is one of the things that slipped through the cracks, that this would have fallen under that assurance.
Yeah, because I mean, even if we can use ESSER to pay for it this year and we have the money, I suppose that's fine, but now we're talking about carrying it
Ongoing.
for the more expensive position year to year to year. And I mean, yeah, I mean, we're a small school of 8 grades and 200 people. We have a tech consultant or director, depending on how you look at it,
Tech consultant.
right? A library media specialist who also integrates tech, but I can't see that job description. It wouldn't let me open. And then also a tech specialist and systems manager. And then essentially maybe the consultant aside, like they're all full-time. That specialist and the library media specialist are now both full-time
Correct.
positions.
They're both one.
And all these people are just busy. Like, right,
Oh,
or are they
they're
like
busy.
playing catch
They're
up with
very
things
busy.
because
Yep.
things piled up, or do we actually need these 2 full-time positions?
Your question is the
For
two
years
ongoing?
going forward.
We do. I mean, the library media tech integration is exactly what that is. That's with teachers in the classroom, research and support. And
Mhm.
the director is the contracted or consultant. That's where you need the networking expertise, that the as needed basis. But then you have all the other things that are not just when things break and fix, but it's like, I need to figure out how to, get this onto my computer. I need to switch this device to here. I need to project. I need board docs, securely. There's all kinds of things that need to be done that we don't take our tech integrationist and media specialist away from the support in the classroom to do that. We have someone else that is taking care of that.
So it sounds like we're
And
gonna
that's-
always need a certain
The Ray
level of.
School has
Right.
that, many schools have the same staff.
You will need those 2 positions for the long haul,
Right,
because
and
think
the
about how remote learning kind of kicked in unexpectedly, and I mean, there has to be a lot of tech support for that. And you move to one-to-one computing, that is ongoing as well. And every time you have new staff in, I mean, it might sound like a simple thing, but there's a lot of setup and prep, and when somebody leaves, there's a lot of, work that happens with that. But even in the day-to-day, the tech support, that person is troubleshooting all day long.
Yeah,
Where the
I-
library tech integrator is really working with students.
I think it's fine. I mean, I just think we need to have a holistic conversation about the different roles, because something has to give here. Like, we need to lose an FTE.
Maybe
for-
not
for
here,
the
entirely
fiscal
somewhere else.
year.
Yeah.
Right, and this may not be the, right, but something needs to give, and so we need to really like sort of look at the whole picture.
So I think that
And
will be
figure out
a
what's
separate
going on.
conversation, I agree.
Yeah.
But bidding this out is not affecting the FTE for this year, because it's just doing it properly
shifting
for
the-
the position we already have, right? So it's not gonna affect us now.
Well, yeah, and the consultant doesn't impact,
Right.
that's contracted work, so that's not gonna impact our FTE. It's like the tech specialist and the fact that it's gonna be like this ongoing.
Well, but maybe,
Position.
maybe the tech specialist is a contractor position.
Well, that would be part of the, right, that would be part of the
But that
conversation,
would
but I
not-
don't know
yeah.
that.
I would worry
that's-
about the continuity of that.
I understand. Well, if you do it well, the contractor would be happy, I mean. I have a contracted tech person who's been with me forever and a day, so I'm just saying.
That's a possibility too.
It's just
Yep.
it's just it depends on how you design the contract. The idea is that if you can get that FTE off the books from an ACA standpoint, it may be worth it. You may pay up a little bit, but the amount you save not going to an ALA district more
Yeah,
than
more than
offsets
you're right.
the slight up to have it be a contracted role versus.
And are you talking about for the next?
Next year, yeah, I'm not talking this year. 'cause this
So
year-
for this year, I like your idea
Right.
I would like to know those numbers, but I like your idea. I think that could help everyone sleep a little bit better.
Which idea?
The idea of,
Putting together a job description.
job description.
Okay, so we have a job
posting the
description,
position-
so I
the
have data
position.
now for salary range, and then we would have that conversation, correct? And then you would get approval to be able to post it
And-
for the rest of the school year, is
and
that what you're
contingent
saying?
upon
Pending
grant
grant funding?
Pending grant funding.
That meets the tentative law.
And that gets us to the end of this year, and then
And we
maybe
can
the
plan,
next couple weeks we can talk
next
about.
step we plan for the following year.
Would it
Right,
be
and that's-
possible, could I ask a couple clarifying questions? Because I want to make sure that I'm sharing this with the teachers tomorrow, with the staff. I want to make sure I'm saying this the right way. Because you guys are going to get inundated with tons of email if if I get this wrong. So I'm worried that what you're doing right now might have it so that we lose our tech integrator this year. What if the grant funding doesn't happen? If you put that in there pending grant funding, then do we lose this person? So I know that there's this year and then talking about next year, and I know everybody has talked about, how important it has been to have this person. And I do just want to say quickly, I'm one of the older teachers in the school. Technology is not my first language. I've had a tough time with it, but since this person has come in, I got to tell you, I'm no longer like teaching technology. I'm teaching lessons that have technology in them. And it's an integrated, smooth part of everything that I do every day now, because I do have that support. She came and helped me twice today because, and made all of these things happen so that your kids can have technology be as much of a tool as just having a pencil. Without that support, this is the first year I know I've been doing it this smoothly since we've had that support in place. So I just want to say it is that important.
But Sue, I don't think you need to worry about that, because as Phil said, we want to look at the possibility of doing what it was supposed to be from the start, which is funded with the grant. And if not, we need to, what did he say, use a sharpened pencil to look at the budget and figure out where it comes from.
So if it's posted as pending grant funding, would it affect the position if that grant funding didn't go through?
I think you should look at it and hone the pencil and this, it's an incremental add. We already have a chunk of this in
Set aside.
already allocated in as part of the role that is in the budget now,
Right.
right? It's an incremental add to cost. It's not the full position cost.
Okay.
Correct.
Right
From a
now,
para
it's-
to a position, once you decide what you want to pay.
Well, but the position already, a good chunk of the cost of that position is already being paid.
Yeah.
Well, she was a .4 para.
What's
No,
that?
a 1.0 this year.
One
Well, she
point
got
oh.
changed to
1.0
1.0.
para.
Yeah, but
So
we
No,
were
she's
paying
paying
for
out.
half of that
Only
already with the
0.4 is in the
grant,
budget.
right?
No,
I thought that was,
So a 0.5 para, that position, without being established as a tech position, just in the para pool at 0.5 was in the budget. And then the contract was issued at 0.5 and then increased to 1.0.
Right.
And the other half, that other half was supposed to come out of Esther's
right,
at the para rate.
right.
So we're looking at a half of an FTE, a half
That was budgeted.
financially, a half of a para FTE salary plus
The
whatever
difference
the
in the
difference
salary
is.
range.
the difference.
Right.
so my feeling is hopefully the grant comes through, but we can't build the position pending that. So I think I would rather us go back to the pencil and say, are there other areas in the bottom line of the budget that we could take from to cover this slot? If it's, if you feel it's that critical, which it's sounding like it
It
is,
is.
that, maybe they have the tech, but they don't have pencils. I don't know what it
Well,
is, but,
I mean, it's, yeah.
right,
Yeah,
and I
good.
know
We
it's
can-
tough.
We can sit down and go through that.
And I think if you go through that, I think I'd feel more comfortable sort of having that, recognizing that what we hope will come through is a grant that will offset that cost.
So that leaves only one thing for you to decide then, and that would be the salary. And I do have New Hampshire IT staff salary survey summaries. So it'd have to be a conversation. I'd like to chat with David Allen on that first, but there is the average salary for tech directors, tech coordinators, network systems administrators, database, SIS specialists, and help desk support. So I want David's guidance on where's this tech specialist best fit in this model, give you the average salary in the state, and then have you determine what you think, based on the job description, should be the salary.
You're gonna make a recommendation.
Yeah, I'll bring one up.
Yeah. And do you need to have a special meeting for that?
Well, we have to post a
Can
job.
we do that on Tuesday if you give us all the data ahead of time and you have to all promise not to spend hours because we need to do the other stuff, but
I mean, I bet if we had that information tonight, we probably could have hashed it out.
I know, but we don't have-
I'm not ready to give you that.
Oh, I know,
job
but
description,
I'm
I
but
saying,
got
if we
that.
add that to the agenda, then we could get that.
Is that all right with you guys to add that to next Tuesday's?
Yeah.
Maybe budget plus that?
So I would be presenting you the new technology specialist job description that is on the
Yeah.
books.
And
With a salary,
recommendation, Yeah.
Is it tech coordinator or tech
tech
specialist?
specialist,
Tech
or
specialist.
you could
Which
call
is
it tech
the
coordinator,
phrase?
what do you want to call it? I mean, what is it?
Well,
What is
no,
Libby?
we should
Careful, it
call
can't
it-
be an admin position.
It can't be an administrative
They
position.
have it as tech specialist and
It's
systems manager. in
It's
the
not
job
a-
description.
it's not a
Yeah.
teacher
Systems
position.
manager.
So
Is
what?
there parallel to another position in the school that is, it's not teacher, it's not para,
It's probably somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Unless there's specific, technology certifications or degrees and.
Other schools have it, but probably
Networking,
none of
you
the
know.
roles in this school.
Yeah.
Can you send it ahead so people can digest it? So that they're ready? for next-
Yeah, I'll do my best. I mean, I actually work in 16 hours next week, so I mean, but yes, I won't drag my feet on it.
Right.
It is critical.
Yeah.
So I will double check on the tech specialist job description. I think it would be best fit if it was called tech support staff or tech support coordinator. Because I think it would cover
Yeah.
a lot of things, but I'd like to kind of consult with David Allen and Elise to make
Well-
sure that it's captured in the job description. And if we make any changes, I want to be able to recommend that. And then recommend a salary.
Okay.
Is that
great.
what you're looking for Tuesday?
Yep.
And to try to get it to you in advance.
If you can, if not.
Well, no, I really don't want you to come see it first time at the meeting.
Right, well, that's what I.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, we have a plan.
Great.
Thank you, everybody. So moving to our next, I guess the question is, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the calendar for April break.
Not a one. I don't recall what the question was about the calendar.
So for conference week to shorten the school days.
I have not.
to one thing.
I have
don't know
not
if you
looked
had
at it.
a chance
Can we
to-
table that?
Is that something that Elise can send me a communication request, what you're requesting? What do you want from that? I don't.
We can do that. We can make sure. I'll do
I
it.
think that.
Because I understand what the question is.
And I recall that the reason to discuss that, try to get that figured out now, so people can plan their lives.
And parents.
Right.
If it's
Parents as
Early
well.
dismissal.
Everybody.
Yeah, well, so that's for April, so hopefully a January meeting would be enough time to plan for a shortened workday. All right.
So we're
So
tabling that.
tabling, correct, tabling the change of the conference week. All right, policies, we have 3 policies. They've all been, the policy committee met and they are being looked at and asked for you to do a first read for revision. Gosh, I have to pull it up, hold on. So the first one is AC. This is a mandated, so this is a mandatory policy. It speaks to Title IX, non-discrimination. Once we pass this, we will be able to get rid of a really old one that references another SAU when we were back in, with Hanover.
You might want to remind everybody that's called in that this should be in the folder, correct?
Correct. So this is policy AC is called non-discrimination. The version that, I don't know if in the folder you can see it as with all of the suggested edits. But basically, we are suggesting all new language in accordance with NHSBA's recommendation. We have scratched out all of
So we're
the
in
prior,
AC right now.
yes, AC, all the prior wording. Specific things that have been added to be for our district only are highlighted yellow, where there was the superintendent or designee. We added, among other things, the plan should include provisions and recommendations with respect to resources, policies, complaint procedures, all of these things. And we will be bringing to you an ACR at some point, the group that's working with this, meaning Nikki, Janet, and Karina are working on that as well. You will note that Nikki is the coordinator of for this sort of a complaint. And so I think it's legally that her name has to be in here.
Really?
You have to name the board, you have to name it.
Okay,
And-
so, yeah, that was the difficulty is, that 20 years from now, will still say Mickey, right?
But that means the board needs to update it.
Right.
Every time you have a different person.
Yeah,
So, and all of the policies that are highlighted have been double checked and are correctly in place. So is there any questions on policy AC? They are coordinated with what we've got.
Would it help if I don't know if the public needs it, because if they can find the document, they can look at it, or do you want to share it to the screen?
You can share it to the screen, because I don't know that the public is able to see it with the suggested edits.
If I save
I
that,
don't think that permission is granted.
and then I'm the host, and then I can share screen.
I find these agendas on these first read, second read things, that should be the title. Policy first read, next thing would say policy AC with the actually title of the AC. Next thing would say policy BC rather than discuss this one, discuss that one, discuss one. And then they can look it up if it's AC with the title, they know if they're interested in looking it up and all that without having too much.
All
It's
right.
just an agenda.
Is there any questions with regards to this policy from the board? I did have this ahead of time. I hope you have read it. All right. So the next policy is policy BCB. This is board member conflict of interest. This is again, all new language, and it's copied and pasted off of the NHSBA recommendation. The reason why we're looking at NHSBA is again, because those are legally vetted words. And so that is why we are.
I don't think I
opting to-
managed to share screen. I'm sorry. Zoom didn't like it. It said, I will mess up the recording if I do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. Sorry.
So, so basically this is, I can't remember if it's simplified, but it's basically all in NHSBA language. And policy committee has reviewed it and feels like it's good. And then the third one is policy BDE, which is school committees and representations. And did we talk about this yesterday? We did, and I don't remember that we adjusted anything in this version. So this is one where there are bigger changes. On the discussion is the standing committees. NHSBA has recommended the committees that are listed here, minus the high school. This is different than what we were editing yesterday, though.
No, isn't it the same one?
Because there was personnel we were gonna do, oh no, never mind.
No, because
so-
you added it. Yes, do you see, it says audits and it says.
Okay, never mind. So. Anyways, so we have eliminated some of the standing committees. However, in terms of the standing committees that are required, however, there's always the ability to have advisory committees, and that would be where you would include things like academic or the Thetford Academy Advisory Committee, the Wellness Committee, things such as that, which may happen because of their required by law or required by law, I should say. The last part is that in this policy, there was these procedures with the specific roles of the different members of the board, with the board chair and different member responsibilities. And we found that this is actually irrelevant. Well, it's duplicated in a different policy. And so we felt that it's simpler to just take it out of this one. So that's where that is. That's the rationale behind all this. And then we are working on a BDER, which will be an appendix to this. All right. Any questions?
When do you think we'll have the BDER for them? Should it?
It's right.
Well, we just talked about it yesterday, right?
I know, but
And
So
so
that's
she didn't
not-
want to
that's
bring
not-
it.
No,
It's
because
all-
nobody had time to read it for
Right,
today.
it was all
so that's
written.
why. Yeah.
Okay.
All
already
right, so, next item on the, is anyone have questions about the first reads with regards to anything?
And do you guys all understand at the bottom of these, it says policy notes, so we try to note down what,
The
what has changed, but generally the rationale is how can we take the standard NHSB language and make that our language with obvious modifications to, the things that must suit us. But how can we bring our policies up to date with the language that is accepted now? And I mean, almost demanded of us for the required ones.
Right,
So, yeah.
all right, so next item on the agenda is the budgeting of the classroom assignments. I asked Elise to do this because we were talking about budgeting for next year. I don't know if we want to table this because we are already 9.
We're gonna have a chance to spend a lot of time.
And we
with
will have a
that when
chance
we
to
do
talk about it next week.
Do you feel like though, maybe if there's anything to clarify on top of this document, that it would be helpful for our digestion?
Or just something to look at. I don't know if there's anything in particular you want us to look at or.
Yeah, I'd rather this meeting be on than next week's meeting.
Next week's is gonna be hefty because it's the.
Can we start at 6 next week? You don't have to answer my question right now.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to bring my.
Oh,
daughter- I need to bring, I need to bring my
We're not
daughter to
derailing.
study.
We're
not
not
derailing.
Bill couldn't
All
be
right.
there before
So
7.
Elise, is
I
there
think
any,
we
do you guys have any questions about this? Because I didn't share everything
Wasn't that
until
for
Sunday
tonight,
night.
though, Elizabeth?
Um,
Wasn't that for tonight, or is that for?
Bill, was it next week that you couldn't do it?
No, that was for this evening.
Well, then maybe.
Sorry, no, it was for last night no, it was for this evening. Yeah.
So can we move it to 6?
Next week?
I don't know that I'm ready to look at, I haven't looked at my
Okay.
schedule for that.
Yeah, we can talk
6
about
is
that
really
later.
hard.
I can't actually. I have a call. I can't move. It's a client call. Sorry.
We're going back to Elise.
Yes.
Would you please explain this stuff? If there's anything to, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
The grades column goes, I have copies here.
Oh, I see it, staffing 22.
The
Yeah.
grades column goes,
So I asked for this because I felt like when Jeff presented the setup for what grades would have how many kids and everything, that was really a visual that was really helpful. And so I asked Elise to do this.
so the
For
grades
us as
column
well.
is, are actual teachers, they just don't have the names of teachers there. The teachers column is the FTE, and the ed assistants column is by FTE assigned to that row. And then the color rows are the middle school staff. And what else? So you can see how the middle school staff would be assigned.
Can I ask you a question with regards to the Spanish, because that was the one FTE that's increasing. When we're looking at this, the Spanish would be, all of the middle school would be taught by the same Spanish teacher? Is that
Yes.
the way it would work?
Yes.
Okay.
Now we have Spanish is 0.5, and we've been putting kids in Spanish class by all sixth graders in one class, all seventh and all eighth in one class, and that makes all the Spanish happening every other day, and it's really difficult to schedule around. It also makes for large classes, and loud, but large classes, and to be equitable with the other subject areas, we felt like they should be in their sections the way they are with humanities and math. So I'm proposing that that's why we wanted the Spanish teacher increased by a few FTE, and also that allows us to have 5-6 team and 7-8 team of teachers.
And that one teacher would be a part of both of those teams?
Yeah, that's why it's purple.
So how do I read this? So Elise, so when you assign 3 lines to grade 5 and grade 6.
There are 3 teachers.
There's 3 teachers that share.
3 teachers would be 5-6, and 3
Oh,
teachers would
okay,
be
okay.
7-8.
And then Spanish would be for all of them?
Well, Spanish
middle
K through
school.
4 and Spanish 5 through 8, right? So,
Spanish 5 to 8 would be
Yeah.
for all.
okay. So there's 3 teachers that cover 2 grades, and then grades 7, 8, there's 3 teachers again that cover those 2. Okay, understood.
And then
So this was
one
just-
Spanish that covers 4
That
grades.
covers 4.
So again, this was just to be informative, so thank you for putting this together.
And I have a question, just I don't know if it affects, like, there was a decision made, perhaps just a curricular decision, but I see that in 5th grade, you're choosing to separate out ELA and social studies.
Yeah.
That's new next year.
No, that's how it's done now.
Okay.
So it's just humanities, is just usually you're integrating.
Starting in 6th.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the peer review for reading math intervention?
The para is a para that's specifically trained to help run small groups for reading and math instruction. So that's part of our strategic plan, is to have more differentiation in small group instruction. And so teachers in the lower grades will have 4 groups going at one time. And so
I see.
the paras there helping, especially the kids that need the extra support while the teacher's working with another group or other.
I see. And then the 2 teachers that are interventionists, are they also in the classroom with?
Both, they're in the classroom, but they're also pulling students that need that small group or one-on-one instruction to catch them up to the grade level.
I see. And is the intervention always the kids that are falling behind, or do they ever work with kids that are moving ahead?
They do, actually, they do,
Yeah.
but try not to pull them to work ahead, but to be, like right now we have them specifically in math, working while kids are working in small groups, our interventionist is working with a group of enrichment kids.
Okay.
And our more recent, like hire over the summer for sped teacher, what position, where is that person filling in here?
Over the summer hire.
That's
It
either a
was,
K3, 4, 5, or 6, 8.
Special ed teacher, that's 4 or 5. 4 or 5 special.
Okay, and then, okay, I'm just trying to recall if there were 3 individual teachers, if it was
Yeah.
all spread out like this before.
Yeah, it was just, we shifted one teacher to K3, and then the new hire is 4 or 5. And then we still have the same person in 6.
Mhm, mhm.
All right. Well, thank you very much to you and to Mickey for putting this together.
I think that's just a thought. I think this is really helpful if you tie it back to the conversation that we had earlier, just in terms of looking at FTEs on an annual basis, because there's a rich complexity to this in the architectural design, for lack of a better phrase, of the educational services, and those change over time. There have been priority shifts over time, and this is now, so you got to look at this as a dynamic picture. So it's a way of maybe a caution that I would advise don't necessarily just get hung up on the FTE, because there's a bigger story to tell here as it relates to the student ratio.
Very good point, Phil. All right. Our next thing, the budgeting for non-union personnel, that was the graph that Janet had presented with the different curves of up and downs and the rates of increase, and so that's been kind of addressed. So the next is the big stuff. The staff feedback for structure.
Yep, if you're ready for that, I did put through a summary, met with the professional staff today. And this is not in any particular order, but I did share with them the duties of the superintendent services and the duties of a principal. So they knew what the requirements were, or what, for lack of a better word, the job description that the state puts out. So I've got bulleted lists because I had them do charts and report out. And this is not in any particular order. So the DA principal model, they had to come up with a list of the duties that they felt were met well, what was well, and then what was not met. And then later on, what are the gaps between the two types of structures. So the duties met were annual budget, school calendar, and I'm going to go fast because it's a list. Grant funding, strategic plan, professional development, school stayed open, business administrator was taken care of, business administration was taken care of, personnel matters, parent communication, fundraising, culture, nurture, teacher evaluation process, pupil and community needs, representation to board, advocacy for staff, accommodating teacher requests, funds, systems to support families, checks and balances is the same person, gained academic director and independent school model. The duties in that model that were not met were decisions were murky, lacked building administration who had decision-making powers, pieces not clearly defined, not clear job descriptions, staff feedback and evaluation follow-through, action-oriented plans, unclear responsibility, lack of checks and balances, budget transparency, procedures and roles of who to go to, principal presence in classrooms, overall vision of the school, principal less present due to superintendent duties, principal is not able to maintain morale and positive cohesiveness vibes, evaluations of staff. Then we went to the a principal part-time superintendent model, asked those who had experience with that to be able to share. So the duties met there were staff evaluations and principal time with staff and students, more classroom presence, more staff support, clear checks and balances. And the duties that were not met in that model was no cohesive curriculum development or staff development. However, there was notes on some of the charts that adding an academic director was filling that gap. Now, overall, what are the gaps and what do they feel the needs are, regardless what the model is they want more support for teachers, they want more checks and balances, academic leadership, setting agendas and structure, clarity on board role versus day-to-day administration, roles, boundaries, building leader priority is school. Wait a minute, I missed something here. It's building leader priority is the school teachers, students, not the school board. Accessible and responsive, strong leadership, putting people first, clear school goals, direction and expectations, feedback for effective teacher growth, communication, new teacher orientation, mentoring, crisis emergency management, collaborative partnerships between all leaders. They want fairness, whether the gap, fairness and equity for all staff, a principal that knows all programs, roles of the super and principal kept separate, principal with clear understanding of schedule needs, academic duties, specials, leadership, vision, communication, collaboration, curriculum, culture, hiring, personnel matters, oversight without micromanaging, development, review, and evaluation of curriculum, school board operations and relationships between board and DA. So that is the punch list of the feedback from the staff.
You can send that around.
Would you please send that? Because that was a lot.
It was a lot. What I will do is I have it
And very
typed into
thoughtful.
my template of the superintendent's report with what I reported out on the other parts, and so I can just, I have to reshare that, right? If I reshare
Yeah,
it
'cause I
before.
don't, it's not on there up right now.
If
No,
I've
it's
already,
not, 'cause I think it says a PDF.
what, you got it, what? Oh, yeah, no, I haven't shared it with you. Okay, so I'll share it with the board and then you will have it. Okay,
So I think that it's important, I mean, we're obviously gonna take a lot of, all of that into account as we are making decisions for further with regards to structure. I think it's really important to have that input from both perspectives, from all perspectives, and what was missing regardless. So thank you to the staff for sharing all of that too.
there should be more because like I said, we went out to the non-union groups as well.
Right.
And you know, the chances are they'll probably provide anecdotal feedback to their supervisors who can then in turn just send me some type of communication with a summary, much like we did this. So it kind of gives you a chance to look to see if there's a pattern of behavior that is important.
And I think I think we've talked about this, that every different positions have different interactions, which are important with
That's correct.
administration.
Yep.
So those are all elements that are important in choosing. And so I guess the next thing on the agenda is the board retreat.
Well,
This is, oh, go ahead.
in that line, I think because we're up against the deadline, we should probably have another session like we did last night, you know, to sort of, once we have all this data, be able then to come back and have a thoughtful conversation. So it'd be great to.
Well, that segues into the next thing.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I just wanted to highlight
That's
it
what I
as
was about to
that.
start
Okay.
with. So, yeah, so as I just, in terms of sharing with the public, what we had last night, we had a board retreat where Kareem joined the board and we started talking through structure, kind of talking, not making any decisions, but just kind of weighing pros and cons and how it all evolved, what we believed were holes in the previous structure, different interpretations from different perspectives. And I think it was a really good, I think everybody came away with something new. I would imagine. I certainly came away with knowledge that I didn't have before. Again, we're still waiting to hear from everybody. So nothing has been decided upon. But I think it helped everybody hear each other very well, which was very nice and very good, and progress, which is wonderful. So I don't know if there's anything else that, and I think Elizabeth, you're right. I think we probably do, once we have all of this input, either we do it in a retreat format or we come together in a non-public to really hash it out. So yeah. And so the last thing is, or the last thing for the public is consent of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve November 16th public minutes?
Can I make a motion that we approve the slate of minutes for
I'll
the,
second that.
so yes, the November 16th public, November 30th public, and November 16th non-public, just to be clear.
I would request for the 30th public to be set aside from that slate.
Okay, so just the November 16th?
Yep, November 16th, public and non-public.
Okay, well, I amend that to
There-
the two November 16th.
Is there any, is there a second to?
I'll second that.
Second is Blanchard. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think this is the same clarification that I was hoping for in the board meeting, but this is under 2A superintendent report. So an observation was given regarding board members serving on committees. And those are advisory committees you're talking about. Those are school-based committees, right? Now, we just looked at a first read of a board, like a policy, and that was, you know, personnel and negotiation. Those are board committees. But what this reference was to advisory school-based committees. So I'm hoping that qualifier could be put in there. So an observation was given regarding board members serving on, what's the correct terminology? Advisory committees, school-based committees?
School-based committees, I think, but wouldn't it be true for all committees? Because no committee has authority. You still have to bring, it's all advisory and it brings it to the board for a vote. Anyway,
We don't make decisions in a committee except as a,
as a recommendation. So almost every, basically any committee that a school board member sits on is advisory always.
Right, I think that I remember the conversation, and maybe I read this with just my memory of the conversation saying that, you know, not all of these committees required board member presence.
Okay.
So maybe I was reading it again with that recollection. I guess.
School-based, and then it would be more sense to have it as school-based because the suggestion at the end of the sentence, the end of the paragraph says committees be limited to an advisory role. So school-based.
I don't know.
I just think it applies to all the committees. I don't understand. I understand what he's talking about for sure. And
Right.
we've already started looking at the committees and trying, you know, and
But I think that board members serving on an observation was given regarding board members.
I'm sorry.
Serving
Serving serve
on-
as a member, an optional member, I mean, as representation, it doesn't mean they're accountable for anything there, but they can provide feedback if they're at the table.
They can only bring, a committee can only bring forward a recommendation that's advisory to the board, because only the board can make a decision as a board. That's the, you know, for example, you know, well, we've seen it. I think it's an advisory committee. That's all a committee is.
I
It's,
think that, go ahead, sorry, Phil.
it might be composed of board members, it might involve public, it might involve staff and administration, but you know, they can only bring a recommendation to the board, which is the decision-making authority. The decision rights are with the board.
But as I recall, the conversation was, this is a suggestion to avoid conflict of interest or influence. And I remember Corinne saying, if a board member and a teacher are present in the same meeting, a teacher might not speak candidly about a subject because there's a board member present. And so I remember that being conversation being about school-based committees instead of board committees. I completely agree with you that any board committee we have doesn't make
Advisory.
decisions on its own.
Everyone okay with that?
Okay, good.
Okay,
what are you asking? Are we?
so we're adding school-based committees, serving on school-based committees. Where there are other people. Specifically, like Hayes said, where there are other teachers or staff that potentially might be influenced by the presence or the opinions of a school board member.
I mean, school board members are always going to be a part of school board committees. We're going to be
Right.
there. So and if teachers come, then
But
we
it's
have
the
to work through that
school-based one.
potential conflict of interest. But I think you were cautioning us against involvement in school-based committees because of the potential conflict of interest.
And the only other change that I made was to the adjournment time. But that was it. It was I made it in red.
Oh, on the
So you guys
16th
saw
or the
it.
30th?
On the 16th.
Oh, the adjournment was,
I just made it equal to the non-public minutes.
okay. So 9:30.
All right, so.
So well, are we voting on
Any
that change?
any further discussion on the November 16th public and non-public minutes? Do I have a motion, or all in favor of them with the amended?
I'm abstaining.
I don't want to do the amended change. I think it's fine as it is, that's all.
Okay. Phil, are you in favor?
I concur with Sarah.
So we have Sarah and Phil are nay. We have Jen is abstaining.
Say the
and
wording
4 of
again.
us
What is the
are
wording?
I'm not even
In
sure
favor.
exactly what's being
What is
added,
the
and that's the
wording?
problem.
School-based, we're adding school-based, serving on school-based committees for superintendent report.
I think
The
there's-
problem is that any committee, even a school board-based committee, could still have a lease coming in on I just don't understand why we're making this change. I don't,
So what Hayes is saying is that when a school board member is sitting on a school-based committee, you have a majority of the people that are working, for example, the academic committee. School board members who are present should not be there necessarily inserting their opinion as strongly. They are there to kind of observe more than influence the decisions that are made because it is the school-based committee. Does that make sense?
Their presence, the presence is an issue in and of itself in some situations from an
But
influence
it's
point of view.
particularly bad if they're giving strong opinions and excuse decision-making because of that. Or recommendations of that committee that might be
They
different.
shouldn't be interacting in the first place.
so are you saying that it has to say school-based? I just think we're a little nitpicky and it's like, I can see how it could apply to our board committees. That's all. So I don't understand why we're making the change.
You wouldn't apply the suggestion to avoid a conflict of interest when it had to do with a board committee. I think that the concern of the observation of Corinne's, and this would be great, I don't know, I mean, I'm trying to clarify what I heard you say. And if I'm wrong, then that's fine too. But I remember asking in this board meeting, is this referring to school-based committees or board committees? Because there are differences. We just decided on this base number of committees we have that are school board committees. And then there are technology, there's academic, there's wellness, anything that's not a part of the core school board committees are school-based committees. And board presence on there as anyone's influence is should be
Minimized.
and the influence should be minimized. So as the decisions being made in these committees aren't being made because of any sort of outward pressure.
So the minutes should reflect what was discussed, and I believe we discussed that specific topic, right? That was the context.
Mhm.
Right, so which is why I think the minutes as amended reflect the discussion we had. Like, I don't think it's a new topic to be debated right now.
So are you suggesting that school-based go in front of both of the words committees? Or is that it was suggested that committees be limited to an advisory role stays as is?
That stays. as
Because
is.
all our committees are advisory.
Correct, that stays as is.
So it's only one addition
first-
of school-based in that first line.
Yes.
Okay, well, maybe that's fine. I mean,
So are you changing your vote?
I just can't believe we're nitpicking on this.
Okay, well, so let's move on to November 30th. We had that vote.
There is one correction, because I said it wrong and it wasn't
For November
Roger.
16th, so we're reopening.
Oh, no, the 30th.
Yeah, for the 30th. Do I have a motion to approve
Oh.
November 30th?
I'll move them.
Moved by Glenshaw, second by.
So
Please,
Mickey sent me an
Greenway.
email after the meeting because I incorrectly put out the figure. The out-of-district placement is 80,000, not 118, 150. There's a tuition cost for sped that go to the sending schools, and I incorporated that number to get to the 118 by
So
mistake.
So 80,000?
Yes,
So under 2B special education, the status of the 80,000.
yes.
Okay.
So she sent me an email with that correction, and so I want to make sure that got in there.
Perfect. I also got an email with the correction from right above it in high school tuition 2A. That instead of the average number of high school students has not been 112, but it's actually been 93 since, if you count the past 6 years.
I thought that was wacky, by the way.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense, but I didn't catch that one.
I just thought maybe there were a lot of placements. I don't know.
So it was
It's
mainly
too big
because
gap.
if it was closer, it's just so way off that that's why it was brought up.
Okay.
No, that's good, it was off.
So
I didn't
93.
pick up on that.
So that's fine.
And any other changes? So the other change that I had was in 2H. That the next Lyme School Board meeting regarding the budget is scheduled for
Okay,
December
yeah.
14th,
That makes sense.
because we're meeting tonight.
Right.
Right, okay. So do I have a motion there? We have a motion, all in favor of the minutes with amendments?
Yeah.
Aye. Passes. Fantastic. With that, we end our public session. Thank you,
At what
public,
time?
for attending.
9:19.
It is 9:19, and we will not close the meeting because we will not close the Zoom because we have Phil online.
I know, but that means everybody needs to.
You have to move them into the waiting room if they don't jump off.
Okay.
I'll just